Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Asher Marketing Podcast. I'm Anthony Giuliano, and my guest this week is Randy Brown from Barnes & Thornburg. Randy, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm happy to be here, Anthony.
Well, you and I are former coworkers for a blip on the radar screen of time. I worked at B&T back in, I think it was 2003. So how are things at the firm these days, and how are you doing in the role of managing partner of Barnes & Thornburg?
No change at all since 2003, right?
Yeah.
No, it's that seems like a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
The firm itself has grown substantially since then. When you were with us, we were still pretty much an Indiana-based law firm.
Correct.
I think we'd had a Chicago office, relatively young in its stages.
Yep.
Since then, we've gone from 5 Indiana offices and 200 lawyers to 19 offices and 650 lawyers firm-wide.
Well, that's impressive,
and we're now coast to coast, as opposed to just Midwest-based.
Yeah, I think the big news when I was there was that Grand Rapids had opened up. So, still one of your offices, but a lot more has happened since then, and we'll get into all that.
Loved the Grand Rapids office, but some more exotic sites since then.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for joining us. And as you know, on this podcast, we talk about a few different things. And you're a little bit of an outlier in ways that I think will be really interesting, because we generally talk to individuals who are full-time in marketing, but you have a lot of other responsibilities. And one of the things I think will be interesting is hearing not just about your background, but also about some of the pros and cons of trying to market a law firm and attorneys because of some of the regulatory environment, some other challenges. But we usually start with a discussion of career path. And I'd like to hear a little bit about, you went to Manchester University and then the IU Law School. So I'd like to hear a little bit about how you got into that. Why did you decide on law as a career? Is that something you always knew, or did you discover it later? And take us from, when you were considering career paths, how you ended up at Manchester, and then where you went from there.
Sure. I never knew a lawyer growing up. The first lawyer I met was a law professor in law school.
Okay.
And I, Indiana Hoosier farm boy, first generation going to college, but was in my senior year of high school, knowing I was going to college, but having no clue what I was going to do, was in the midst of an argument with my senior English teacher, Mrs. Eddy. She was just a gem. And
what high school was this?
Prairie Heights High School up in the Steuben County, LaGrange County line. Rural school, and not all of us went on to college.
Sure.
But I had a teacher that took an interest in me, a number of teachers, but Mrs. Eddy, for one, in the midst of one of our arguments about something in class, says, "Randy, you are going on to law school, right? Given your both tendency and ability to argue." And that was the prompt.
Interesting.
That's what led me to start looking into it. And so for me, Manchester was the best place to go. I didn't apply to too many schools. I sort of went an easy route in that I had 2 older siblings that were there.
Yep.
And at the time, it was one of 2 schools that recruited me to play football.
Okay.
So that was how and why I ended up at Manchester.
Yeah.
Majored in poli-sci, which is consistent with law school, because what else are you going to do with a poli-sci major?
Sure.
But to go on to law school.
Sure. So did you play football all 4 years?
I played 1 year.
1 year, okay.
1 year, and realized that at that point I was a step too slow for even NAIA football.
Okay.
Humbling experience, but still loved it as well.
Sure. And what position?
I was a running back and defensive back.
Okay.
And then got to college, and they wanted me just to focus on defensive back.
Yeah. Well, both positions that require probably more speed than you and I have combined.
Yes, exactly. Now, if we want to run distance, we're good with that.
Well,
right?
I was never fast, but I could go forever, and you're the same way.
Exactly.
So you're at Manchester. Tell us what that experience was like and how that got you on the path towards law school.
I owe my career actually to Manchester. Again, first generation, going on to experience things in college that I'd never experienced growing up in a lower income farming family. Got there and was exposed to just a rich group of professors, a diverse group of students, a diversity of thought, and it just inspired me to do more than what I had experienced growing up or around me. So Manchester has a mission statement. They value the infinite worth of every individual, and I was one of those that they took an interest in me, and had great, not only just in the political science, but I minored in business, and just got a feel for what was out there. And so I give back to the university. I've been on their board. I love it for what it did for me.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about that, because I'm curious from a personal perspective. I've served on the Indiana Tech Board of Trustees for the past couple of years. It's been a great experience. And, one of the things I've said is that serving on that board has been a lesson in learning what I don't know about higher education in Indiana Tech. What's your experience been like as a board member for Manchester?
This very similar. At the outset, wow, there's a lot going on here that I just am really unaware of. But I served a total of 13 years on the board, the last 3 as chair of the board. And through different opportunities, through ICI, Independent Colleges of Indiana, and other seminars, just immersed myself into the business of higher ed. And have learned that it's a tough market. It's a tough industry, even tougher today than when I got into it years ago. And innovation and dedication to mission are the things that are going to allow the liberal arts colleges to survive. Manchester, during my tenure there as on the board, showed lots of innovation. We had great leaders. We opened up the College of Pharmacy here in Fort Wayne up at the Parkview campus. Was just a game changer. So it was being able to, as a university, recognize your strengths, but also recognize your strengths in terms of really teaching and growing and really motivating students. It's not really a high income sort of. So coming up with other ancillary, and with a College of Pharmacy being one of those, a means of really supporting the undergraduate programs.
And they just introduced some nursing programs, if I'm not mistaken. Great.
Health sciences, of course, is the way to go. So with pharmacy, pharmacogenomics, and now nursing, they're really kind of all in on that front.
Well, I'm a big Dave McFadden fan. I haven't seen Dave in a long time, but I think he's done some great things and is just a great guy, very accessible, and a great leader for that institution.
Absolutely, and I take some pride. I chaired the committee that brought Dave as president. His only downside was he was a Dodgers fan and not a Cubs fan.
Well, glad you didn't hold that against him. So we digress there for a little bit in a healthy way, and I often take our guests on winding paths. But I want to come back to your experience in school at Indiana University. Tell us, why'd you pick IU, and what was your experience like there?
So graduating from undergrad in-state, recognizing that I wanted to practice law in-state, IU Indianapolis, IU Bloomington, now one's the Maurer School and one's the McKinney School. That was really just the way to go. And so for me, and at the time, the circumstances were such that Indianapolis was just the right place to be. And they have maybe a better, not necessarily, more placement in state. If you want to practice in Indiana, IU Indy is just the way to go.
Okay. So one of the things that makes you unique among our guests is, if I'm not mistaken, you've worked at one place for 30 years, your entire career. And am I missing anything there? Any gaps in the employment other than maybe jobs you had in high school and college? But is that the one place you've been?
It is. I'm a B&T lifer. All right. Started as a summer associate, part-time job in the summer as a clerk. And then started full-time in August of 1990. And so it'll be, 31 years here coming up this summer.
That's impressive. Most of the guests on this podcast have had multiple jobs, many even multiple careers, so it's rare I get to talk to someone who's been in the same place. You mentioned some of the ways that Barnes & Thornburg has changed, but tell me, just at a very high level, what does the firm do? What does it specialize in? What do you think makes it different?
So Barnes & Thornburg is one of the 75 largest firms in the country, with still headquartered primarily in Indiana, but of course offices all over. We offer a value proposition for clients across the country, and that is Midwest rates, Midwest values, might be sometimes overused phrase, but we're able to take on any sophisticated engagement, but do it in a way that is very cost effective for our clients. And it's not just hourly rates. Hourly rates are important.
Sure.
But it's also our approach to staffing matters. As a trial lawyer, I have lean trial teams. I'll be lead counsel, I'll have a chief lieutenant, I'll have an associate and a paralegal, and we find ourselves oftentimes up against trial teams with 10, 12, 15 lawyers.
Sure.
So, and just simple math says that firm's client's paying a lot more than our client is paying.
Yeah.
And we found that with smaller, lean teams, with everybody fully engaged and knowing all the issues, it's sort of a seamless, great approach.
Sure. So efficiencies that maybe you wouldn't find at other firms.
That's very much the key. Yes.
Yeah. And Barnes and Thornburg, and I'm going to test my memory, and my memory isn't that good, but its legacy, its birthplace, if you will, was Indiana. I think specifically Fort Wayne and South Bend. Is that correct?
Indianapolis and South Bend.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
And that firm was one of the early mergers in 1981 or 82.
Okay.
A kind of silver stocking but small Indianapolis firm with kind of the biggest player in town in South Bend.
Yep.
Decided their practice was at the same level of sophistication. They were serving similar clients, in some instances the same clients, and the thought was then, which is sort of prevailed throughout, there's a size, there's a mass that makes sense. And that merger really is what has driven the success of the firm. And we proved that we were able to merge at that time equals and turn it into something even better yet.
Sure. So a little bit early in the game with mergers, and tell me a little bit, why has that become so commonplace in the industry and among law firms where you're seeing more and more mergers? What's driving that?
I don't know that the current drive or focus is based upon sort of what was happening back when we started it in the 80s. There is, among some firms now, this notion that you have to fight for the largest of engagements, and to be able to put yourself in a position to get those engagements, you need to show the bench strength. You need to show that you've got, not 600 lawyers, but you've got 1,500 lawyers.
Sure.
And you are essentially telling the rest of the potential clients, many of you we're not interested in. We're only interested in the $1 billion cases, the $1 billion M&A deals. And so I don't see us ever being part of a merger of equals, even though that's how we were formed. Because we've got sort of a sweet spot in terms of client base that can be still local Fort Wayne companies that we've served for 30 years and love. Mid-sized, maybe smaller publicly traded companies that aren't going to be out hiring the $1,000 an hour lawyers, but want great service. So we feel it really opens up for us the client base that is sustaining, that will allow us to keep doing all the good things we're doing. That said, we won't turn down the $1 billion engagement, the $1 billion lawsuit. We've had them, we've done them, but we're not going to take those to the exclusion of the small company, manufacturing company serving the auto industry here in town.
Sure.
We like their business. We'll do good work for them.
Yeah. So you play a dual role, at least a dual role, because you're a practicing attorney, but then you're a managing partner, managing the Fort Wayne office. Tell me a little bit about each of those two jobs, and then how do you balance that? Because that's a pretty tall order.
Well, I'm happy to, but your facts are just a little off. It's actually 4 jobs.
Okay.
So practicing lawyer, which I've grown up and love to do, we'll put that off to the side to start with. But in addition to acting as the managing partner of the Fort Wayne office, 2 years ago I took on the role as chair of our litigation department firm-wide. and then I also serve on our firm-wide management committee.
Okay.
So those three managerial roles combined take up probably about 60% of my time, with about 40% left doing the work I really love, serving clients.
Yeah.
I say that somewhat tongue-in-cheek because I wouldn't be doing the managing role if I didn't like it, if I didn't see value in it, I didn't think I was having a positive influence on folks. But so managing the office is it's a daily job that really keeps me connected with the talent in Fort Wayne, keeps me connected with the client base in Fort Wayne, and it's really one of being an advocate for the office and the community in a bigger firm. And then sitting on the management committee allows me to essentially be an advocate for Fort Wayne. And what I love about all of these positions, and being on the management committee and then taking on this role as chair of the litigation department, that's the largest department in the firm, 200 lawyers across all offices reporting up to me, and I'm sitting in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Of our 19 offices, it is the second smallest community that we're in. And the firm hasn't held that against me or any of my partners, right? If you can do the job and you're good at it, the firm's going to put you in that position. And we're actually blessed in Fort Wayne to have three of us having actual firm-wide positions. So Dawn Roseman, whom you know is our diversity and inclusion director, firm-wide. Savannah Robinson, whom you know is our legal personnel administration director, chief talent officer, firm-wide. So all of that happening in Fort Wayne, I think, is a good testament to the community and to the office.
Well, and you've got, and I say this very genuinely, just a powerhouse team in Fort Wayne. Having worked with some of those folks and gotten to know them over the years, it's astounding to me how much talent there is in that office. So, if anything, you can be sure that, the trains are running on time even when you're not there. Tell us a little bit about the team in Fort Wayne and what you're especially proud of, because, as you mentioned, one of the downsides of taking more of a management role is you spend less time getting your hands dirty, so to speak, but you also have the ability to impact people in a different way. So tell me a little bit about what you've seen during your time as managing partner in terms of that influence you've been able to have and what you're most proud of there.
I would say that the office underwent a fairly significant transition where when I first joined the firm into the late 90s, early 2000s, we were very much a corporate business-centered office. And with some retirements and transitions, we found ourselves with a solid and good corporate practice, but not as robust. And so the labor and employment group, the intellectual property group, and then the litigation group, we all sort of had to step forward and really make an impact while we were also doing the same within a smaller corporate group. So getting that, the face of the office or the persona of the office being distributed among these groups as opposed to just one actually has been a really positive thing for us. And kind of tying into the overall marketing topic, our departments all cross-sell. So we've got a good labor and employment client that the labor and employment lawyers, they're hard chargers. They know that, boy, it'd be great to also get that company's next M&A deal. Or if they have a piece of commercial litigation, let's plug Randy or Elizabeth Underwood in. So it's just a mentality among the lawyers of let's grow the pie, let's work together. And that's when I stepped into the role. I sort of had two main goals, and one was being then the smallest office in the larger firm to say, all right, we're not going to be the squeaky wheel. We're going to put our nose to the grindstone. We're going to work hard, and we're going to be profitable so nobody ever asks what's up with Fort Wayne. And then we're going to hit the streets and market, hit the streets and develop business and just get our individual brands and the larger firm brand out there and emphasized. And I would say, given that 2020 was the most successful year in the history of the office during a pandemic, we've done pretty well.
Yeah, no, that's great. I wasn't aware of that, but that's a testament to the folks in Fort Wayne and your work for sure. So this is where I want to dig in a little bit, because it's fascinating to me, having done very little bit of work in that field, in marketing a law firm. It's very different than a lot of other industries in a number of different ways, because you have standards that dictate what you can and can't do. It's obviously a very serious business. Tell us a little bit about how do you market with some of those limitations, and how do you turn some of those challenges into strengths for your firm and for the Fort Wayne office?
I'll begin with the biggest challenge marketing law firms is lawyers. We're not all, but largely sort of that type A personality. Yeah. And we're oftentimes great tacticians, great technical. We know the law inside and out, but you put us in a room trying to woo a client, and it's, people just don't naturally have that, or not all lawyers have that talent. So getting lawyers acclimated to business development, and that's something that, years ago, you just never worried about. It's just lockstep. Eventually, you'd be handed a practice. Yeah. No. Now we look at people early on and say, do they have that that knack for the gift of gab, as I say? Can they get out and spend time with people and make themselves heard and known and seen and all of that? So that's challenge one, is just your marketing lawyers who just aren't really good at this in the first place. You're helping them. Second, as you note, there are lots of things that we can't say when we are marketing ourselves. We have ethical constraints that will prevent us from guaranteeing results, that will prevent us from proclaiming a particular specialty unless we actually have a license in that area. You can't claim to be a specialist in patents unless you sat for and passed the patent bar. Lots of different examples like that really puts a burden on our internal marketing team, because all the great stuff that they create for us that we look at and say, oh, that's wonderful, has to be then vetted by our professional responsibility committee. And invariably, they will come back and say, nope, can't say that, or let's tweak it this way. So there's, as you say, layers of regulations that limit what we can do.
Well, and things as commonplace as testimonials, which drive so much of the marketing in so many industries, are, in many cases frowned upon in your profession. So they take away one of the arrows in your quiver right away.
But lawyers are good at coming up with creative solutions. And the industry at large, if you look at all of the different rating services for lawyers, you've got super lawyers, you've got best lawyers, you've got multiple different iterations, and they have processes whereby they will talk to your client and then solicit for you, in effect, the testimonial. So it's we do it, but just in a really odd way.
So tell me a little bit about how you're marketing, how the firm, how the office is marketing itself these days. What are some of the not without giving away too many trade secrets, but what are you doing today that you think is working in terms of getting out there, making your attorneys well known and well respected, and keeping the name in front of people? What are some of the things that are happening at Barnes & Thornburg?
So we have the firm-wide marketing department that it's probably 3 times as large as when you were with us, and maybe even more so, that is responsible at the kind of 100,000-foot level for the overall marketing strategy, the overall look and feel, and the broad sort of brand and reputation management through the website and through our print ads and through our responding to RFPs and things of that nature. So that group is a well-run, execute things nicely, and I think we are in a good position with that overarching leadership. We also then have at the office level, we've made great strides in trying to be to tout individuals within the office through social media, and I'd say we've upped our game in that regard,
Sure.
but we've got more strides to make.
Sure.
Through the LinkedIn and Instagram and so there are a lot of things that we're doing, and we're always looking for what's the next best way of getting that brand out there.
Sure.
And then, as you know, lawyers, the best marketing for a lawyer is the lawyer's reputation, and then the lawyer's individual brand, and the relationships that the lawyers are able to forge.
Yep.
So having a group or a marketing department that recognizes that is just a really, really good thing.
Yeah, well, and providing some latitude for the professionals to join boards that align with their passions and to, come up with ideas for, in a pre-COVID and post-COVID world, getting in the same room with people who they can, build relationships with is critical.
And that's the tried and true approach that you remember from way back that we continue to do. And part of that is the benefit that comes from it in terms of connections and contacts. That's great, right? I mean, but we're not necessarily doing it for that.
Sure.
We instill in all our lawyers, we're professionals. We're blessed to be in the positions that we're in, and we're big parts of the community. So what can we do to give back? And so, again, you don't just get placed on a board. You do some investigation. You do some volunteer work. What is your passion? And then once you're on that board for a newer lawyer in the office, our position as the office and the firm is, we're going to support you. So the table at that event, the sponsorship for, we're all in that regard, supporting the organizations that our lawyers are involved in, and then benefit does come from that. But it's never you never get an engagement, a new client from it. But you serve on that board for a while, then you're on the executive committee, and you're rubbing elbows and meeting with lots of executives and others in the community that see how you interact with folks. They see what value you bring, and they think, I ought to give that lawyer a call.
Yeah, but it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight.
You're exactly
it sounds
right.
like you do it for the right reason, and if there's any marketing benefit to it, that's kind of a bonus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, great. So the next question I want to ask you, and obviously you can only share so much, but you've got your position as the chair of the Manchester Board of Trustees. You have your 4 jobs at B&T. What are some of the things that are taking up the majority of your time, your mental energy, that are keeping you up at night, that excite you? Maybe all of those things combined that you can talk about. What are some of the projects that are at the top of your list right now?
I'll begin with the Manchester. So I did cycle off the board as chair, but I'm sort of a glutton for punishment. I've been asked to chair our newest capital campaign.
Okay.
And so in that role, we are actively in the early stages. It's one of those, we haven't gone public, but everybody knows we're doing it, so there's no issue
the
here.
Quiet phase that's not so quiet.
Yeah, exactly. And just working with a great team of professionals at Manchester, and then a great group of volunteers, mostly alums, but we're all working together. We've got another bold goal out there, and raising money during a pandemic you'd think would be difficult, but because we have such a great mission to sell, we're ahead of our goal at this point in time. And so that's been it's my side business. It's just been a wonderful experience. And then at the firm, from a management perspective, one of the most exciting things we've got going on right now is it's actually a survey. I think, all right, survey. We engaged a vendor who has a really robust survey program package and delivery system that looks at employee engagement. And so we've got the first results back, and one of my partners works with me in our Indianapolis office in the litigation department. He's a geek for data. And he's got me excited as we're pouring through all of this data to see, both for the department and then also separately for the office, what are the drivers for satisfaction or dissatisfaction. And once you've identified those drivers that we need help in, now let's put an action plan together. So the firm recognizing that, I mean, the employees are the lifeblood.
Sure.
So let's figure out how to get them as engaged as can be, especially it's still in the middle of a pandemic when how often, I mean, all of us have felt so disengaged at times that you just you wonder what's life like before. So we're making a concerted effort now, which is a pretty exciting project.
No, that sounds great. And, I applaud you for taking that on because I think it's one of those things organizations can be really complacent about, but especially for an entity like a law firm, your product is your talent.
Yes.
That's it. And you invest a lot in people when they're getting started in their careers. And if you lose someone, 5, 7, 10 years in, that's a pretty big loss.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So let's keep them happy.
Yeah,
and keep
for sure.
them engaged.
For sure. And, it's one of those things that is been a true downside. A lot of, obviously, challenges have come with the pandemic, but the erosion of company culture and organizational culture is something that we're going to have to win back. I think almost every organization is going to have to figure out how do we go forward in this new sort of hybrid environment.
Agree completely. And we're all learning every step of the way. I mean, we're finding that there are a significant number of employees that actually love working from home. And so are we going to upset that apple cart?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
But we also recognize the value in having people together.
Yeah, sure.
And just, I mean, I'm sure in your line of business, just the creative thought coming from people sitting around a table with a whiteboard.
Yeah, sure.
You need that too. So we're trying to strike that right balance when it's time to kind of fully open as well.
Yeah, well, it sounds like the timing is great for getting that feedback and doing something with it. So you've got the capital campaign for Manchester. You've got the employee engagement study. What else is on your plate? What other things are consequential in your work life right now?
So one of the niche areas of the practice that I've carved out over the years is intellectual property litigation. So I do lots of just general commercial litigation, class action defense, contract disputes, shareholder disputes. I kind of, whatever gets you into court.
Sure.
Not whatever, but whatever gets you into federal court, I jump in and do. But patent infringement litigation has been really the best part of my career professionally has been those patent cases that I've really sunk my teeth into. I'm not a patent lawyer. I'm not an engineer. I tell people, I've got one of a hard science degree, that political science, and the engineers laugh at that. But what I've been able to do, and it's sort of my shtick, I'm the Hoosier farm boy that's a quick study on technology.
Yep.
And so the engineers get me up to speed on the technology, and then I'm able to relate to a judge or to a jury. So I've got 2 patent cases going on right now that are really, I mean, they're fun cases. Both of them I'm defending alleged infringers. I've represented patent owners multiple times and love that as well. So one's a bet the company case for our client that's pending out on the East Coast. That I'm up against some big firms out there, and we're kind of developing the strategy to show that the patents are invalid.
Yeah.
The others just started, locally filed with a long-standing client of ours that we're looking at saying, we got some good defenses here.
Yeah.
So just developing the defenses, developing the strategy, putting the team together is all pretty fun stuff for me.
Yeah, well, and it's high risk. When you talk about those bet the company strategies, that's something that I still don't have nearly the appreciation that people who work in the field do. But having dipped my toe into that world, you realize that there's a lot. It's kind of an understatement to say there's a lot at stake with the cases that you're working on.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the former jock, I like the adrenaline rush.
Yeah, sure.
And I like especially the courtroom itself is it's to me it's the best part. Literally the best part of what I do is arguing or doing a closing argument or a cross-examination in front of a jury. It's just exhilarating.
Well, and you have a pretty clear scorecard at the end of the day, for better or for worse.
Yes, you do.
Well, Randy, one of the things we do now that we've heard the whole story, or at least most of the story, is we do some quick hit questions that kind of synthesize what we've talked about. So the first thing I want to hear, again, with you being unique in having a long career with one organization. What's your best career advice? What do you think it takes for someone to build a successful career, to ultimately be fulfilled in their career? What has stood out to you over the years?
Hard work. That's what started my career, that made me known to other lawyers, other partners in other offices of the firm. This lawyer is working it.
Yep.
And then couple that, of course, with a willingness to jump in, to sort of be fearless, take on a new engagement, take on a new matter, and just that I can do this.
Yeah.
And so hard work and then attitude,
Yeah.
I mean, are get you there probably 75, 80% of the way.
Yeah.
But then along the way, again, this is just more life advice, and that is, hey, be respectful. Know that your reputation is everything, and don't develop a bad one.
Yeah.
Because that's in the service industry, literally your reputation is everything. And if you got the reputation of being a bad lawyer or a toe the line lawyer or a way too expensive. I mean, there's all sorts of labels that can be attributed based on something that happened 20 years ago. So don't let that happen.
Yeah, sure. So, and you've had the opportunity to observe some very successful, very driven people. I'm going to ask you a philosophical question, and it's kind of not fair because I didn't prep you for this one, but I'm interested because I've been having a lot of conversations about it. You know, people talk about things like hard work and you know the attitude you bring to work, and I'm interested in this as a byproduct of the study you're doing. Do you think those things can be taught, or is it just something that people have innately, that ability to work hard, that desire to work hard, bring in the right attitude to work? Or can people be taught to, you know, if they didn't get off to a great start as professionals, can they be taught to acquire those skills, if you will?
20 years ago, my answer would be, you either have it or you don't.
Yeah.
But as I've grown more into the managerial roles and see folks that need a little extra guidance, a little extra tutelage. And what I'm finding, observing, and now know for a fact that, yes, many of the traits can be taught. I mean, hard work, that's an easy one, right?
Yeah,
it's just, and when you look at it from the perspective of, if I want to continue in this path, I have to do X.
Yep.
People are going to be motivated to do X.
Sure.
Even something as simple as, you know, performance improvement plans that happen across corporate America.
Yep.
There are people that will point to the time they were put on a PIP, you know, 6 years into their career, and say, that was what led me to where I am today.
Yeah.
I was scared. It was eye-opening, and I changed.
Yeah.
So I'm a firm believer of people can be trained, people can affect, you know, their career path. There are some things that we mentioned earlier, the gift of gab. There are going to be some people that just because of their personality styles and their just who they are, they may not be the best persons to go out and generate business.
Yep.
But they may be an expert in a particular field that the people that can generate business say, we've got the lawyer that knows this area inside and out, and you need to hire us because of that lawyer.
Sure.
So it's sort of win-win at that point.
Yeah, it's putting together a team with all the strengths.
Yeah.
You know, you need those analysts. You know, I'm a big believer in DISC assessment, and I happen to be a high D and a high I. So one of those people who probably has the gift of gab and who is quick to make a decision, but is quick to make the wrong decision sometimes. So that's why I need the folks who are more analytical and a little bit more deliberate to balance that out. If I didn't have that, I'd get in trouble a lot more often.
I had through Leadership Fort Wayne years ago, we were doing, it was a learning style.
Yeah.
And I was, and we all did the test, and then we would put our name up on this 4 quadrants. And I was the only one in this particular quadrant.
Okay.
That I was a reflective observer.
Okay.
Which is still true, but I've learned over the years to sort of hide that and can be a little out there at times. But the instructor who was putting on this program, was looking at this and sort of just interested in this outlier.
Yeah.
And of course, she'd put on the program. She knew each of these categories. So, Randy, I mean, you're a reflective observer. I mean, tell us about that. The first person she calls on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are you kidding me? Go around the room a little bit and come back to me in about 10 minutes.
Yeah,
and then
so
I'll
I can
be
observe and
Exactly,
reflect. Yeah, for sure. So the next question is a simple one, deceivingly simple because it might actually be so simple that it's difficult. To sum up, if somebody said, Barnes & Thornburg, what makes you special? What makes you different? Why you and not another firm? What might you say to that?
We are always adapting, changing, and putting not only the best product forward, but also doing it in the right way. And so just let me give you an example of a couple things that we've got going on right now. I mean, again, we had a great year in the middle of a pandemic. Sometimes feel a little embarrassed to say we did well.
Sure.
But two of our largest or most important projects we're working on right now, in addition to this engagement, is our diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have taken our DE&I program to the next level over the course of the last 4 years, just recognizing that it's the right thing to do. It's what our clients are looking for. And so, and we now have a program that is nurturing our diverse talent, ensuring their growth and movement up into the partnership. It's just a really neat thing. So, and then couple that with, as we look at all the metrics that law firms are measured by, we've had a good pro bono program, providing legal services to indigent, poor, prisoners, that sort of stuff. But it's just not as good as what it should be. So same thing, we're doubling down and making sure our pro bono program is second to none. So I think in addition to doing great work, we do the right thing. Yeah,
well, that's great. And the diversity, equity, and inclusion piece, I think you mentioned this, Dawn is leading that firm-wide.
Exactly.
And she is a force to be reckoned with.
Yes, she is. Yeah. She probably has done more podcasts maybe than you and I combined.
Yeah,
so
I would imagine.
She's out there.
I would imagine,
and doing great things.
Yeah, well, she's a great asset and just a great person. I love spending time with her. All right, last question. You mentioned, how if you've had a good year, you might tend to have, almost survivor's guilt of being successful at a time when so many people aren't. And, I came out of 2020 saying, hey, if I have my health, if my family has their health, and if I'm still getting a regular paycheck, I'm pretty lucky. Don't complain about anything else. But there's a lot of people who don't have those advantages. So, what's your take on what it takes to be resilient and optimistic at a time when there's so many bad things going on? A lot of times I focus this on marketers because there's a downturn in the economy and, challenges in getting your message across. But I want to take it more broadly. What have you learned about resilience over the past year plus, and what would you like to share with the audience?
So I'm going to begin with a story that might sound a little trite, but I have, 2 daughters, grown now, married, wonderful women who are off to an amazing start to their career. My youngest, Katie, she would have nightmares as a child. And I just instilled in her this simple statement: think happy thoughts. And she actually has a tattoo now with that on it because it's essentially it's the mind over matter. It's the positivity. It's I'm always been a glass half full person. So but not everybody's like that.
Yeah, sure.
But to the extent you can think those happy thoughts, focus on the positive, focus on the good. Take what's negative that's coming at you, reframe it, and find positive in it. And I think all of us during the course of the pandemic have had lots of opportunities to look at it and say, "Oh, that is awful."
Yeah.
But now, what are we going to do with it?
Sure.
So the use of technology that we've all become accustomed to, we're getting things done now more efficiently than we ever did before.
Yeah.
The Zoom meetings that we all can joke about some of the odd circumstances that have occurred, but it's going to be part of professional services firms forever.
Sure.
It adds value to clients. You cut down on travel costs. I mean, there's just lots of things that I think we're all going to look at and say, God, that time was awful, but this was a good thing that came out of it.
Yeah.
So resilience generally, I think some of that comes with from an organizational standpoint. What are you grounded on in the first place, and are you managed in a way that allows you to be more resilient? So. And I like to think we're managed in a really strong way in terms of conservative, not extending ourselves, and being able to plan for and address uncertainties.
Yep.
And I think maybe another positive thing is all of us are going to be better the next time we deal with something like this. Because this is a once in a lifetime thing, but there's going to be another scare, another circumstance, another national disaster. There's going to be something that I think all of us will say, all right, we've got this.
Yeah, we've all gotten a little bit more flexible in the last year out of necessity, but that'll help us down the line. Well, and as a Cubs fan, you've certainly learned something about resilience over the years.
Oh, nice.
I say that as a Red Sox fan, so we've been lucky the last 15 years or so, but we're back to where we started.
Yes,
so.
The two best stadiums in all of baseball.
That's right.
Fenway and Wrigley.
That's right. We have that going for us, if nothing else. Well, Randy, thank you so much. It's great to catch up with you and to hear more about your story, and I'm sure the folks listening in enjoyed it equally as well. And thanks to all of you who took the time to listen. We'll be back next week with another great guest, and we hope you'll join us then.